Hello everyone, my name is Ashish and you're watching another web guy YouTube channel, and in today's video we are going to create this website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So without wasting any time, let's get started. If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell icon so that you don't miss any of our videos. Before we start coding, let me show you the features of this website. So as you can see, we have a text logo here. You can also use an image if you want. Then we have some navigation links. Then we have some main text. After that, we have a secondary text. Then we have got a nice button. And the cool thing which we are going to learn in this video is how to create this beautiful particle background using JavaScript. That I will show you by the end of the video. And this landing page is completely responsive. So as I resize my browser, you can see we have some smaller text, the button is smaller, and we have a hamburger menu here. And if you click on this hamburger menu, we get these links in a vertical fashion. So now let's see how we can build this website. As usual, I'm using my VS Code text editor with live server extension installed. So as I click on this go live button here, we will be able to see all the changes in real time here in the browser. Let me show you the file structure as well. So we have a index.html file, we have a style.css file, and we have a script.js file. I have already linked the style.css file and the script.js file with our HTML page. So now we can get started. We'll start with making a div having an ID of container. Now inside this, we'll create a nav element. Inside this, let's create another div having the ID of nav container. Here we will create two divs, one to keep the logo and other one to keep the menu items. So I'll give an ID of logo, and here I'll create a element, and here let's see technet.ai. So technet.ai is the name of the fictitious company of which we are going to build our website. Now we'll have another div having the ID of menu. And here we'll create three links. Let's name this products. Then we can have an about us. And we can have a contact. After this, inside the nav element, we will create another div to keep our hamburger menu. So for that, let's create a div having an ID of bar container. And to create the bars, we will use font awesome. So for that, let's go to the browser. And here we'll say font awesome CDN. And we can go on to cdnjs.com. And here we can click on the CSS tab. And here we can copy the default link for font awesome. And we will paste it here below our title tag. So we have to create a link tag, and here we'll paste it. And that's it. Now we can use our font awesome icons. We'll close this. And here we will create a I tag. And we'll give this a class of FA bars. And let's give this an ID of bars. If you don't know how we gave this a class of FA and FA bars, so for that you can go onto the Font Awesome website. So we just have to type Font Awesome, and here you can go on to Font Awesome website, and below here you can go on to see the icons. Remove this duotone filter, and here you can write bars. And here we have the bars icon. If you click on this bars icon, you can see this is the I tag which we are using. So they recommend FAS, so we'll put this FAS also here. I don't think there should be any change. Okay, it's the same. So that's how we got this class, and that's how we got the bars also. So this is our menu bar. Obviously we have not added the CSS yet, which we'll add next. Now let's create the main section. The main section will also go inside the container div. Now in the main section, we will create a h1 tag to keep our main text. So here we'll write complete AI solution. You can write whatever you want. I'm just writing some dummy text. And below this, we will create a h3 tag. And again, here we'll give some dummy text. And below our h3 tag, we'll have a button. And we'll keep the button text as get started. And that's it. So you can see we have the basic HTML for our web page ready. Now let's go on to the style.css file, and here we will add some CSS. To save on time, I'll quickly copy and paste the CSS, and I'll give you a walkthrough so that we can give more time to the JavaScript part and we can understand how to create this cool background. For the purpose of this landing page, we are going to use Lato and Oswald font. So let's go on to Google Fonts. And here we can search for Lato. Here we'll select the regular font, and we can also select this bold font. After that, we'll select this Oswald font as well. Now we can go on to our selected families, and here we can see that we have Lato and Oswald font selected. Now let's go on to the embed tab, and here we'll click on the import statement, and we'll copy this import statement here, and we'll paste it onto our style.css file. If you want to know how to apply these fonts, you can see the CSS rules to specify these families here. For now, we'll close this. Now let's give it some universal styling. We'll set the margin and padding to 0, and we'll give the box sizing to border box. After this, let's come on to the body element. So you can see that we have given the font family as Lato and the fallback font as sans serif. We have given the text color as white and the background as a shade of blue. Next, we'll grab the nav element, and here we have given the nav element a padding of 2 rem, and we have converted the nav element as flexbox. So you can see that the nav element has got 2 children, the nav container div and the bar container div. So you can see these are side by side due to the flexbox model. After that, we have set the justify content to space between, and that's why they are separated like this. And we have set the font size to 1.2 rem. After that, we will grab the links inside the nav element, and here you can see that the text, we have set the text decoration to none and the padding to 1 rem and the color to white. Now let's give these links a bit of hover effect. So for that, we will just change the color on hover. Now you can see that the links have a nice hover effect. Now we want these menu items to be next to our logo. So for that, we will grab this nav container div and we'll convert that also into a flexbox model. And now you can see that all our links are next to our logo due to the flexbox model. We have set the justify content to space between, and we have set the align items to center so that they are horizontally and vertically aligned. Now we don't want these bars to display right now. We will display it through JavaScript later. So for now, we'll set the display of these bars to none. You can see that the bars are gone. Now we'll grab our main element. So you can see that we have given the max width of 800 pixels. We have set the display to flex because we will use the flexbox model to centrally align the content. We have used the justify content and align items to center the content onto our screen. We have set the flex direction to column so that they are below each other and not side by side, which is the default value of flexbox model. and then we have set the height to 80 VH. Next, we'll grab this H1 element. For the H1 element, we have our font family as Oswald and the fallback font as sans serif. We have set the font size to 3.5 rem. We have set the text align to center and text transform to uppercase. Now let's grab our tagline. For that, we'll grab the H3 element. And here also we have set the padding top to 5 rem. Then we have set the font size to 1.2 rem. And we have set the text align to center. Now let's grab this button. And for the button, you can see that we have set the margin top to 3 rem. Then we have the top and bottom padding of 1.3 rem and the left and right padding of 3 rem. We have set the font size to 1.3 rem. We have the font family as Oswald and the fallback font as sans serif. We have set the font weight as 700. We have also given a letter spacing of 5 pixels. Then we have set the background color to a shade of blue. And we have set the text color to white. We have set the border radius to 5 pixels and the border style to none. And we have also given this transition property because we are going to create a hover effect. So now let's create the hover effect for the button. In the hover effect, you can see I have changed the text color to a shade of blue and we have set the background color to a lighter shade, and we have also given a slight box shadow. So when we hover over this, you can see that we get this kind of effect. Now let's make this web page responsive and let's define the styles for smaller screen sizes. So if I resize my browser, let's give it a media query. And here we want our nav container to be block. So now you can see that we have converted the flexbox model to the block. We don't want the flexbox model for the nav section for smaller screens. Then let's grab these menu items. And here you can see we have set the display to none. We have set the position to absolute. Let me change this display property to flex so that you can understand what is happening. And you can see as we have changed the display property to flex, we have our menu items in this fashion. So we have set the position to absolute, we have set the width to 90 VW, we have given a padding top of 1 rem, and we have given the flex direction of column, and we have set the align items to flex end, and we have given a Z index of 1 so that it is above all our elements. We will change the display property to flex by using JavaScript. For now, we'll keep this to none. Now for smaller screens, we want to show our bars. So let's change the display property of bars from none to block. You can see that we have our bars here. We will also change the size of these elements inside the main section. So we'll grab the H1 element from the main section. And we'll reduce the font size to 2 rem. We'll also grab the H3 element. And we'll reduce its size to 1 rem. And we'll also reduce the padding top to 4 rem from earlier 5 rem which we had. We also want to reduce the size of this button. So we'll grab this button and we'll change the top margin to 2 rem. We'll also reduce the padding and we'll give the font size to 1 rem. So the basic design of our web page is now complete. Now let's see how we can add this cool particle background and a responsive menu to our web page. Now before we move on to our JavaScript part, let me show you one thing which you already must have noticed, that if we expand our browser, you can see that the main section is not in the center. Don't worry about this right now. I'll tell you why this is happening and I'll also let you know how to fix that. Now let's come on to our JavaScript part, and first we are going to make our responsive menu. So we are onto our script.js file. Now let's declare some variables to grab the elements from our DOM. So we'll make a variable bar container and we'll set its value equal to document.getElementById and we'll say bar container. So we are actually grabbing this element here. Now we'll also grab this bars. So for that we'll make another variable. We'll say let bars equal to document dot get element by id, and we'll say bars. Now we'll declare another variable to store our media query. We can target the media queries through JavaScript by using the match media method. So for that we'll say const enqueue equal to window dot match media, and inside this we'll pass the media query string. We'll say max width and 760 pixels because we want to change the state of these menu items at 760 pixels. Now this method returns an object and it has a matches property which we can use. So for that, first we'll use an event listener. So we'll say mq.add event listener, and inside this we will say change if the window changes, and here we'll pass the event. I'm using the arrow function syntax, and here we'll say if event dot matches. So if the window is less than 760 pixels, we want to hide our menu items and we want to show our bar container. So we'll say menu dot style dot display is equal to none, and we'll say bar container dot style dot display equal to block. This should be menu, and we haven't grabbed the menu item, so let's grab the menu item as well. So we'll say let menu equal to document dot get element by id, and here we'll say menu. So basically we are grabbing this div here, and otherwise if the screen size is more than 760 pixels, then we'll say menu dot style dot display is equal to block, because we want to show our menu and we want to hide our bar container. And that's it. So we have handled the visibility of our bar container and the menu items. Now we want to handle the click event. For that we'll say bar container dot add event listener, and inside this we'll listen for the event click, and we'll create an anonymous function, and inside this we'll say if menu dot style dot display equal to none. Then what we want to do, we want to change this style to flex. I showed you that when we change the style of these menu items to flex in the small screen, we could see our menu items in a vertical fashion. We can see like this. So we'll do this by JavaScript. So right now its value is none. We will change it to flex. So here we'll say menu dot style dot display equal to flex. We also want to remove these bars and we want a cross symbol. So for that we will change this fa bars class to fa times. So we'll say bars dot class list dot remove, and here we'll say fa bars because we want to remove this fa bars class, and we'll add the fa times class. If you're wondering how I get this fa times class, again you can go to the Font Awesome Icon website, and there you can check for the cross symbol and you'll get that the fa times class is for the cross symbol. And again we'll say else we want the menu items to none, because if we are already showing the menu items and if someone clicks on these bar container class, at that time we want the menu items to go off. So we'll say menu.style.display is equal to none, and we'll set bars dot class list dot remove. We'll say first remove. We want to remove this fa times class. So we'll say FA times, and we'll add the bars class. So we'll say FA bars, and that's it. That completes our functionality for the menu items. So you can see if I click here, we are getting the menu items. If we click again, the menu items are gone. If I resize the browser, just reload it. If we resize the browser, you can see that we have got the products. If we resize it again, you can see that now we have the bars. So we have got the menu items, we have got the bars. If we click on the bars, you can see that we have the menu items, and if we click again, the menu items are gone. Now let's add the particle background. For that, we will use a JavaScript library known as particle.js. For that, let's open a new tab. Here we'll write particle.js. And you can go to the GitHub link. And this is the GitHub link for particle.js. So here you can see all the use instructions. I'll tell you how to use it. For that, we'll go to our index.html file. And here we will add another div on the top that will act as a container for our particle background. So we'll say, and we'll give it an ID of particle.js. So this is the div which we have created, and you can see here in the users tab, they are also telling you to create a div. Now they also want us to add a script having the particle.js file. For that, we will use the CDN. So if you scroll to the very bottom, so here you can see that they have given the link for the CDN. So we'll click on this. And here you can see we have got the CDN link. So click on this copy button, and you can click on copy HTML and just paste it here. Ensure that this script tag is above the script tag which is holding our script.js file, because we want this particle.js to load before our script file runs. And that's it. So just a recap, we have added a div having the ID of particle.js. You can add whichever ID you want. And we have added a script tag for the particle.js file. Now let's go on to our script.js file. And let's go to its GitHub link as well, and let's see what are they saying. After you've created this div and added a script tag, what you need to do is you have to add this piece of code. So we'll copy this and paste it on the top of our script.js file. So what this does is, they're saying particle.js.load. So basically load that particle.js file, and this is the name of the div where we'll be holding our particle.js file. So basically this is, so if you change the ID of this div, you have to pass the ID here as well. Then the next parameter is a particle.json file. We haven't yet created this particle.json file. I'll just show you how to create this. And the third parameter is a callback function where they are logging onto the console that the particle.js config loaded. For now, we don't need this, so you can just delete this to make things simple. And that's it. We need to add this particles.json file right now. I'm not using any assets folder, so I'm going to remove this as well. So we are just going to add this particles.json file. So for that, go on to the Explorer pane. And here inside your folder, just create a new file and name it particles.json. You can give some other name as well, but then ensure that the same name will be passed here. Now what will go inside this particle.json file? Inside this, you can see this particles.json file. We will copy the complete code inside this particle.json and we will paste it in our particles.json file. So I'm just going to copy everything. That's it. And I'll paste it here. That is all we need for now. If you go onto our web page, you can see that nothing is visible here. For that, we need to add some CSS as well. We'll go on to our style.css, and here we will also fix this issue that when we are expanding the browser, we can see that it is coming onto a side. It is not at the center of the web page. We'll fix this as well. So let's go on to our CSS file. And here what we need to do is, we need to first remove this max width from the main section, because right now we are giving it to the main section and that's why it's creating an issue. So we'll remove this, and you can see now our content is centrally aligned. Now we'll grab this container div and the particle.js div, particle-js div. So for the container div and the particle.js div, we have given it a position of absolute. We have given a height of 100 VH, that is the complete viewport height, and the 100, and we have given the width of 100 VW, that is the complete viewport width. Now let's grab the particle.js div and we'll give it a size and background. And here we'll give it a width of 100 VW. So we have added a gradient background, and we'll also give it a fallback background for the browsers which do not support gradient. Okay, so we cannot see anything here because I have done some errors, and let me show you what I have done. Here the ID of the div which we have used as the particle container is particle.js, and in the script.js file we have given particles.js. So we are going to change this. We'll say particles.js here, and in the style.css also, here it's right, but here we have not added particles, and that's it. And here you can see we have got the particle background. Now we are going to tweak it a little bit. So for that we'll go on to the particles.json file, and here you can see we have a bunch of options. Now I'm going to explain each of these options. Let's come on to the GitHub file of the particle.js, and here you can see all these options and what each does. So let's see one by one. First we have the particles property, and here you can see the value. Value is the number of particles there on the screen. So we can change this to something less, say 50. And you can see that the number of particles has reduced. Next, what we can change is the color. This is the color of these dots or the particles which we can see. So let's change it to something different. So we can change it to a shade of dark blue. So I'll change it to this color, 021B79. And you can see we have the particles of a different color. Now here is the shape, that is the shape of the particles. You can change into different values, and here you can see all the different values you have. So basically you can change it to circle, you can change it to edge, that will be a square. I'll just show you. So if I change it to edge, you will get these squares. If you change it to triangle, so you can see that we have got little triangles here. So you can change into all of these values, polygon, star, and you can also even add an image if you want. And you can also give an array and it will randomize between these values. So let's revert it back to circle. Now this is the stroke, which is the stroke you want around these circles. So if I say suppose 2, then you can see that the circles have a stroke of 2 pixels, and here you can define the stroke color. For now I'll keep it to 0. If you are giving the value of polygon, you can set the number of sides. So if I set here polygon, I can change the number of sides from here. So if I say 7 sides, you can see that we have got a 7-edged polygon. For now we'll delete this because we don't want, and here we'll change this to circle. And if you set image here, then you can set the source for the image. We are not using the image, so we can delete this as well. Next we can set the opacity. So right now the value is 0.5. We can change it to something darker. We can say 0.8, and you can see that the circles are now a bit darker. Now here the value is of random is false. If we set it to true, then all of these will have random opacity from 0 to 0.8. then we have a value of anim which is false. If we set it to true, let me show you. Now these are animating between the opacity of 0 to 0.8. You can see that they are fading away, then they are coming back again. So I want it false right now. Next, you can define the size. So let's change it to something smaller. Let's say 5. And you can now see that circles are now very small. We have set the random property to true. That means the size of these circles are random between 1 to 5. If we set it to false, you can see that all the circles will have the size of 5. Let's set it back to true again. Again, if you set the value of anim to true, you can see that the size will fluctuate between 1 to 5. You can see if we set to 5, you can see that they are changing their values from 1 to 5. And here we can set the speed. Sorry, they are fluctuating between the size of 0.1 to 5. We can change the speed from here. We can say set if you want to sync them or not. For now, we'll keep it false. Next, we have the line length property. That is whether we want these lines or not. So if we set this value to false, you can see that these lines are gone and we now only have these particles. If you want to create a starry effect or something like that, you can set this to false. Right now we want it true. You can set the distance between these particles. You can set the color. We'll change the color of these lines also. So we will change this color of the lines to a shade of blue. And this is how we want our lines. We'll set the width to 1 pixel and we'll also increase the opacity to 0.6. Now you can see how the background has changed. Now the move property defines how these particles are moving. So we will reduce the speed from 12 to 4. Of course, if we set the enable to false, these particles will not move and they will be static at one place. So if we set it to false, you can see that these particles are static. So this is also a nice effect. You can use it sometime. But for this, I'll set it to true. Then you have the direction property, and let's see what we have got for the direction property. And if you scroll down here, you can see here we have the particles.move.direction, and you can have values like none, top, top right, right, bottom, bottom left, left, top left, and you can try these values and you can keep whichever effect you want. For now, I'll keep it to none. Then we'll keep the random to false, we'll keep the straight to false. You can check all these values in the GitHub link, and they have given all these values, and you can try these values and find out which works best for you. I'll keep this as it is. After that, let's come on to the interactivity. Here, this is detect on. So detect on, whether you want to detect it on canvas or you want to detect it on window. Here you can see the two properties. Either you have canvas or you have window. So I'll change it to window so that whenever we have our mouse on the window, we can enable the interactivity. And then we have the on hover property. So on hover, we can have the grab mode, we can have bubble, ripples, etc. So we will change this to true. We want to enable this mode, and let's see what happens on ripples. So you can see in the ripples property, this is what we get. We want to change it to grab. So let's change it to grab. Now you can see that we are getting this kind of effect. Let's tweak this a little bit. This is the on click property. So whenever we click, we want to add more particles. We have the push. We have other values as well. So we have the push, we want to remove. We have the bubble effect, or we have the ripples effect. You can try each of these values and see what works best for you. For now, we'll keep on to push. What happens on push is that whenever I click, it will add more particles on the screen. So whenever I click, it will add more particles. You can see it is adding more particles. In the modes, we can change these grab and push properties. So for now you can see that the distance is 800. We'll change this to 400. And now you can see we are getting a better effect. It is only grabbing the particles which is close. Now for the line length, we'll change the opacity to something less, say 0.4. And that is the effect which I want. After that, we have the bubble mode, ripples mode, and we can delete all these. Next is the push. Here we have kept the mode as push, so we can define the number of particles we want to add every time we click on the screen. Right now we have 4 particles. We can say make it to 10 if we want, and if we click, we will get 10 particles at one go. We will turn it back to 4. We can also define the number of particles we want to remove. If we set remove here, for now we'll delete this. And we'll keep this retina detect to true. That is probably for the retina screen. And that is the effect we want. That is how we create this particle background. And you can see that is completely responsive. If we resize this web page, you can see that we are getting the smaller text. We are getting this hamburger menu. And we are getting a smaller button. And I really found this particle.js library interesting. You can use this for various projects. You can create some starry background or something else, whatever you want. Please hit the like button if you learned something. If you're new here, consider subscribing. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.